Morning, everybody. Beautiful Wednesday morning here in Plattsburgh, Missouri. So I had a person ask me to do a little segment again about some warm season annuals. So we're going to talk about that again, do a little live broadcast here today. And we're going to compare and contrast forage sorghum, sorghum Sudan, pearl millets, and cereal grains. So I'm probably going to hang on here for just a second to let a few people log on here now that I'm going live. So again, beautiful day here in the compound of Plattsburgh. Lots going on in the country. Between again, we have some people that are getting wrapped up on planting, a few acres that are still going in, still planting some forage acres out there as we have some drought scenarios in different parts of the country, and again some different places where we have some prevent plant and we need to get some forage planted. So let's just go ahead and get started here on this whole scenario, and you guys can watch it later. So forage sorghum versus sorghum Sudan versus pearl millet, and then we're going to throw in a cereal grain. So options out there. So there are some early day forage sorghums in the industry right now. So if you have those acres that need to be planted to forage sorghum, there's still some. We're just getting into the prime time to be planting warm season annual forages right now. And I think last week there were parts of the country that still had 48, 49, 50-degree soil temperatures there as you get a little bit farther north. So something to remember on these warm season summer annuals is that we do need to have a 60-degree soil temperature as a minimum to get forage sorghum. We'd like to see that for grain sorghum, the sorghum Sudans. The pearl millets that we've been talking about really like to have a 65 and even a 70-degree soil temperature if we can get soils that warm, and be patient enough to put those in at 65, 70 degrees. So one thing to consider is that we're really not behind yet. We have great timing, great opportunity to get some of these warm season annuals in the ground for feed this year. So that's a little bit of the agronomy about soil temperatures. Now, the other thing about some of these warm season annuals would be planting depth. So forage sorghum, we'd like to see forage sorghum planted about 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep. Sorghum Sudan grasses, 1 inch to 1.5 inches deep. The pearl millets, on the other hand, we like to see those planted at about 3/4 of an inch deep. We have a 60,000 seeds per pound seed count, so they're a little smaller. We're going to plant that at 3/4 of an inch. So again, there's one of the big differences, and one of the things that people might have a little trouble with pearl millet is they get it planted too deep in general on some of these acres. So let's do about 3/4 of an inch. As we talk about how to get these crops planted in the field, I've had a lot of discussions lately about planting forage sorghum, sorghum Sudan grass, and pearl millet. So my favorite way, not saying it's the only way, but my favorite to get forage sorghum, single cut, full season material in the ground is with a corn planter using a sorghum disc. And part of the reason is we're going to plant somewhere between 4 and 6 pounds. And we plant 4 pounds, that's a 60,000. So to plant 4 pounds, get your 30 or 60 cell sorghum disc, run that in your planter. Singulation is beautiful. Seed row spacing is another discussion we've had. 30-inch rows is fine. 22-inch rows is great. 15-inch rows with your inner plant is absolutely amazing. I'd love to see that. Once we get narrower than that, we're probably going to have to use a drill, right? And most of the time, if you have a drill and you try to set it down to 4 pounds to plant a forage sorghum, it's not going to plant very well. And above and beyond that, we basically have a controlled spill, and we don't have good seed placement, where if we can use that corn planter with seed discs, we have a whole lot better seed placement, more accuracy, better depth control, all of those things. So just imagine you're planting a different variation of corn at twice the population. So that's something to remember. It's going to have a very similar plant stature for most of its growing season. So forage sorghum, we can go 30s, 22s, 15s are great. We get narrower than that, There are some people that only have a drill to use to put forage sorghum in. So my suggestion to those guys, and I've done it myself, it works. Take your drill, leave the end unit open, tape across the next two, leave the next one open. So plant out of every third row unit. And instead of setting your drill at 4 pounds, you can set it at 12 pounds and get 4 pounds planted through every third row unit. And it's easier to set the drill at 12 than it is at 4 by all means. So then you have an option to use a drill if that's all you have access to plant forage sorghum. So sorghum Sudan grasses, on the other hand. Now we have a plant that we like to get planted out there because we're going to probably take it, instead of just chopping silage, we're going to have the option to do silage, baleage, multiple cuttings of baleage or dry hay, and or multiple grazing opportunities. Or maybe you cut it once and graze it the second cutting. Maybe you graze it first and then let it regrow and cut it for hay or baleage on the second regrowth or third regrowth. We still have enough season for people farther in the south that we could get 3 really good cuttings of a sorghum Sudan grass out there this year. So sorghum Sudan grasses, instead of planting at 4 pounds or 6 pounds like we were talking on forage sorghum, we're going to go to a 20 to 25, maybe 30 pound planting rate. Our general recommendation is 25 pounds. We try to provide the industry with some really, really good high quality brachytic dwarf BMR, some BMR photoperiod sensitive. We do carry conventional products as well. And we're going to plant those things probably about 25 pounds. Now, 25 pounds, we're going to use a drill so we can get narrow row spacings, fast canopy. We're not going to try to use a row unit to chop it anyway. We're going to probably use a swather cutter or just let cows graze. So that's not an issue. So depending on what you watch, where you go, who you talk to, what part of the world you are from, and maybe what your past experiences are, you could see people suggesting a planting rate from 30 up to 50, 70, 100 pounds of sorghum Sudan grass. Absolutely not needed. The varieties we have today are improved varieties. So in the past, somebody might plant 50 or 7,500 pounds of a sorghum Sudan grass. I'm going to generalize here and take a guess and say that those were probably a conventional old style product, which we've changed drastically since then. So in order for them to get a small stem that they could dry fast and get palatability for the livestock they were trying to feed these old cardboard style products to, we had to have a fine stem. So in order to get a fine stem, we had to plant oodles and oodles of plants per acre. So when you consider today, if we're planting 20 pounds at 15,000 seeds per pound, we're putting out there 300,000 seeds to make a good stand. So use a drill, inch to an inch and a half deep, 25 pounds. If you're really striving for some drier hay and you're in one of those humid areas, plant 30, finer stem. But you need to realize that these newer products, these brachytic dwarf BMRs, tiller prolifically. They might have 3, 4, 5 tillers per plant as well. So you take that times 3, you're going to have almost 1 million stems. Great products. Watch the planting rate. Trust me, I'm a seed marketing guy. I'd love to sell more, but is it the right thing to do for you guys? Absolutely not. 20 to 25 pounds gets you most all day long. Now let's get into the pearl millets just a little bit. So the pearl millet, 60,000 seeds per pound. Again, we're going to drill that with a drill. 3/4 of an inch deep, like I mentioned before. So you get that pearl millet 3/4 of an inch deep. Again, 60,000 seeds per pound. We're really going to plant somewhere 12 to 15 pounds on most of those very good acres that get adequate moisture or irrigation. If you start getting extreme dry land, you could bump that thing down to 12, 10 pounds. I was visiting with the breeder in Texas this week. He has guys planting under 10 pounds to hedge against the drought. But again, a plant that tillers prolifically. So even at that, when you consider 10 pounds at 60,000 seeds per pound, we have 600,000 plants per acre. Or 15 pounds, I mean, we're going to be close to a million seeds to the acre. Lots of tillers, the tremendous number of stems to harvest, finer stem, leafy, bushy material. I'm really excited about the pearl millets right now in our industry, and we have some great ones. We have 2 different BMR products and 1 exceptionally good, high-yielding conventional. So I just wanted to now. I'm going to get 14 phone calls this year about people saying, hey, I'm going to go put some fertilizer out with these products. Can I just blend it in the fertilizer and spread it out on top and harrow it in? Well, you know how this goes. I can tell you that you absolutely have to use a drill. You absolutely have to put it in the ground, and you could spill that bag in your driveway and everything's going to grow. Nature of the beast. But if you want to have a good stand and plants that will stand up well, you need to use a planter for your forage sorghum or a good drill. You need to use a good drill for your sorghum Sudan grass, and I highly suggest using a good drill to put in your pearl millet as well. Can it be done other ways? Absolutely. I'm going to have somebody that's probably going to fly someone with an airplane and try to drag it in, and it's going to work to a level. As long as your expectations match what you've done for a management practice, I'm good with that. Just don't be one of those guys that calls me to complain that it didn't work well when we try to do shortcuts to get things in the ground. So those are some compare and contrast on the agronomics. Now let's talk a little bit about what I've seen. So the other thing would be cereal grains and maybe some of these other foxtail style millets. So for people that are considering doing a cereal grain planted in June to grow through the hot months of the year, you might want to reconsider that. So by all means, I'm not a small grain expert, but what I want to tell you is that we are talking about growing warm season annual grasses with sorghum Sudan, forage sorghum, and pearl millet. They are designed and bred to grow through the hot, stressful months of the year, and that's exactly what we're asking them to do. Cereal grains mostly are designed to either be growing or to be started during the cool part of the year so that they can produce during the warm parts of the summer. So by thinking about that, if we're going to try to plant it in June, we're already starting off on the wrong foot completely. And so my suggestion would be is if you have any of the warm season annuals available to you, that should be your first choice versus a cereal grain to try to make the most tonnage during the summer months. There's some intuition that plays into this, I think. My experience with the foxtail style millets, being golden German millet, Siberian millet, the white wonders of the world, proso millet, any of those foxtail millets. The hybrid pearl millets we have today should out yield those maybe by 2 times as much. So I've done some trials myself. I have people scattered across the country who have started to compare those. Multiple comments this spring about people that had compared them last year in some of those drier, hotter areas. And every time I talk to somebody, I always hear the hybridized pearl millet absolutely outperformed the cheaper foxtail millets that we traditionally have planted. Tonnage wise, they seem to handle the drought stress as well or better from people that I talked to. And that even comes from a couple guys in the Dakotas just recently that went through last year being hot and dry. So keep those things into consideration. I have heard and seen potentially that in the end, those foxtail millet prices have crept up and are very similar to and or even more expensive than some of the good hybridized pearl millets in the industry. So check into that as well. Again, just like any other that we might talk about, they are not all created equal. So just because you find a BMR pearl millet doesn't mean that it's maybe the best BMR pearl millet in the industry, or just because it says pearl millet There are differences, and we've seen that, and we really try to bring you the highest yielding, highest quality products here at the Cropland brand. So check those out. So let's see. Those are a couple comments there, yield and quality wise. I have seen pearl millets and sorghum Sudan grass yield almost equally the same yield in different parts of the country. I would suspect if we get a little harsher conditions that the sorghum Sudan grass can out yield the pearl millet. Where we have pretty good conditions, I think they're going to be very, very similar. From an all-out yield standpoint, if a guy says, I want the most yield I can get, we're going to go right to a forage sorghum, full season, let it go from June through September, and take one big, huge cutting of high-quality forage and put it in a pile. So from that standpoint, forage sorghum is still number one. I think sorghum Sudan grass is a close number two to forage sorghum, and a little bit of a leader over pearl millet, but pearl millet is still a very big fighter out there. And if you are intending to make grass hay, I think pearl millet is your best choice to get the best dry down. You're going to crimp it, lay it wide, lots and lots of leaf material. And here's the beautiful thing about pearl millet that some people forget. There is no prussic acid issue with the pearl millet crop. So if you're out there and you want to graze through the fall, or you've taken one or two cuttings through the season and you have some regrowth that you want to graze later, we do not have to worry about these freezing events and having prussic acid issues. So the pearl millet is a wonderful crop to have out there for that. The second thing is, if you're a little farther south, pearl millets also do not have any sugarcane aphid host ability. So if you had a forage sorghum or a sorghum Sudan, you could have sugarcane aphids come in there and destroy your crop. And the pearl millet is tolerant or not a host to the sugarcane aphid. So great piece there. Now, as we're talking about sugarcane aphids, we also do have some tremendous sorghum Sudan grass products that do have a sugarcane aphid tolerant option as well. So if you want a Brachytic dwarf BMR sugarcane aphid tolerant product, Guardian AT for aphid tolerant is the best Brachytic dwarf BMR out there. If you want to go a little, you want a conventional product with sugarcane aphid tolerance, we have a product called Honey Sweet AT. So keep those things in mind as well. We do have those. And again, these sorghum crops on a corn acre that are traditional corn, awesome. They break the disease cycle, they break the corn rootworm cycle, and they give you high quality feed at a fraction of the input cost. So all of those pieces come into this as we compare and contrast. Now, the last thing the person asked me to contrast would be dairy feed versus beef feed. I'm going to just make one reference, and I'm going to just leave this sit. Dairy cows generally get milk 2 or 3 times a day. So we can measure that cow's production 2 or 3 times a day. If you are feeding sorghum Sudan grass, forage sorghum, pearl millet, whatever it might be, you're getting a premium for increased weaning weights and cow condition, body condition score is the word I'm looking for. So you have body condition score, weaning weights, and performance. Whether you're grazing forage sorghum or sorghum Sudan grass, or you're feeding it in a round bale feeder, that cow needs good feed. So if you want to limit yourself on how many pounds of beef you sell at weaning time, or want to go buy more supplements to feed, plant the cheapest sorghum you can find. If you want to raise the best feed you can, take great care of that cow, have her breed back like she's supposed to, keep really good body condition score, and have more calf to sell at weaning, plant the very best Brachytic dwarf BMR or some of those high quality forage sorghums, sorghum Sudan grasses, and pearl millets to feed those cows. So in my mind, there's really no difference. We're going to raise great quality feed. We're going to feed livestock like they should be fed. And we're not going to just go chase the almighty penny down the road and say, man, I just saved $10 on a bag of seed. Because I will tell you, if you save $10 per acre because you buy the cheapest seed you can find, you're probably going to lose $40 an acre on how much beef you could have produced off of that same scenario. So buy the good stuff. I'll tell you, I've done sample after sample after sample, and we have ratios and analysis today that show us that the good products will gain you probably a half a pound per head per day gain by feeding the right type of product. My last example is this. If I were to bring you a bowl of celery and a bowl of Snickers bars, set down in a room of people, which bowl is going to be empty first? Yep, the Snickers bars are going to go first. That's just like feeding a high quality product versus celery on a low quality product, because you've all that have been on full feed product similar to the cheapest stuff you can buy, and it's all fiber. They get bulk filled, they can't eat enough, they don't get enough of that stemmy cardboard type material, and they can actually go backwards on body condition because there's not enough good in it. We've all seen that happen before. Don't do it on purpose. So that's the end of my preaching today. But people, high quality products for our livestock it should be a priority. So again, I contrasted Forage sorghum, sorghum Sudan grass, pearl millet. I talked a little bit about the cereal grains and some of these foxtail millets in here, dairy versus beef, planting scenarios, soil temperatures, soil planting depth, planting rates, all that's in here. So if you guys missed the first part, come back and watch this video later today. I really appreciate your time today. If you have more questions, please comment, reach out to me, send a personal message. Half the people on here most of the times already have my phone number, so give me a call, find your local dealer, and have yourself a great Wednesday here in June. God bless, and y'all take care. Thank you.